White House, as many other countries have started doing. Right now, Dow futures are down about 2%. Sunny and cool this morning. Right now, 52 degrees in Midtown, warming up to a high of 68 degrees. Atlanta's most accurate and dependable forecast is coming up. Well, Delta Airlines releases its earnings report this morning, and it's a strong indicator that the Trump tariffs are creating uncertainty in the travel industry.
The Atlanta-based carrier points to the global trade uncertainty as the cause for adjustments to their expected earnings for the year. Delta is still anticipating a profitable 2025, but did not reaffirm its January forecast of $7.35 per share in adjusted earnings. For the first quarter, Delta's adjusted profit did beat analyst expectations, revenue coming in at $13 billion. That's roughly in line with estimates, but the airline stock is down 41% for the year, that drop outpacing the overall decline of the S&P. Graham Carroll, 95.5 WSB.
Duluth-based AGCO plans to keep some of its machines out of the U.S. for now as the company considers the impacts from new tariffs.
Saying the tariff landscape remains very fluid, the owner of farm equipment brands, including Massey Ferguson and Fendt, said that for now it won't bring machines that were made abroad into the U.S. AGCO said that parts shipments won't be impacted by its decision and that the company continues to ship finished machinery from the U.S. to other countries where there were no tariffs. In February, even before the tariff announcements, AGCO said it expected this year's sales to be below last year's. I'm Bloomberg's Gina Cervetti for 95.5 WSB.
It's 9:02. Grady Health System breaks ground this morning on a new emergency department in South Fulton County. The site in Union City will eventually be open 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, significantly expanding access to emergency care.
Someone's having chest pain, their loved one brings them there. They can be much more quickly assessed than if someone had to drive them all the way up to Grady.
Grady CEO John Halpert previously said the facility will be 20,000 square feet with imaging and laboratory services, also a pharmacy. It's slated to open in the fall of next year. Spirit Airlines is expanding its operations here in Georgia. The low-cost carrier says it'll start offering several nonstop flights at Savannah International Airport later this year. New routes include flights to Detroit, Fort Lauderdale, Nashville, and Newark. Spirit underwent financial restructuring and exited Chapter 11 bankruptcy earlier this year. Well, many studies show that working the night shift is bad for the heart, but when you eat could lower the risks.
A study by Brigham and Women's Hospital showed that night shift workers who only ate during the daytime showed better cardiovascular health than those who ate during both day and night. Researchers say daytime eating exclusively helps readjust your internal body clock.
Michael George there reports the study results are published in Nature Communications. Well, have you noticed what appears to be a strand of lights in the night sky? The brief, mysterious display has created concern for some, but there is a simple explanation. It's what's known as a Starlink satellite train, created when SpaceX launches satellites to expand global internet access. They can be seen with the naked eye shortly after deployment when the satellites are still closely grouped together before spreading out in orbit. It's now 9:03. The Mark Arum Show begins in less than 2 minutes. First, though, time for live team coverage of traffic and weather. Triple team traffic now. Smiling Mark McKay.
All right, Cheryl, we'll see improvement out of Brookhaven toward northeast Atlanta. Right now, 85 comes to a halt. 85 southbound below Shallowford Road approaching Claremont due to a crash. It took a little while to get it completely onto the shoulder, but that's where it is now. 85 south past exit 89. That's North Druid Hills Road. You always have Buford Highway to help you out. Still seeing delays on the inner loop into the bright sunshine, 285 east, leaving Cobb Parkway over to Northside Powers Ferry. And we've yet to let loose of the jam on I-20 into Cobb County. Ashley Frasca.
A stall's been reported in that center lane, I-20 westbound right at I-285. Can't get eyes on it. Traffic improving a little bit, but still causing a jam back at Panola Road as you roll over from exit 71. Triple team traffic, 95.5 WSB.
I'm Channel 2 Action News Chief Meteorologist Brad Nitz. Headed to 68 with sunshine today. Tomorrow, increasing clouds, low 49, high 74. The risk for some strong and potentially severe storms coming in late Thursday evening and Thursday night.
And right now, sunshine, 45 degrees in Marietta. You're at 48 degrees in McDonough. Norcross, 46 degrees. We'll have more news at 9:30. Breaking news when it happens. I'm Cheryl Castro, 95.5 WSB.
Welcome, friends. Prepping for another rocky road on Wall Street, but hopefully smooth sailing on West Peachtree Street in Midtown. I don't know if that makes sense. Welcome to the Mark Arum Show. A lot to cover today, including the latest tariff news. You just heard the update there from Cheryl Castro. China earlier this morning announcing reciprocal tariffs against these United States of America. We are tariffing Chinese products at 104%. China now tariffing the United States at 84%. Obviously, this is an escalating trade war between the two greatest financial powers on the globe. We're going to monitor the markets, obviously, in the futures market. Not terrible losses right now. The Dow's down about a percentage and a half, 564 points. But we do expect a lot of ups and downs in the market today. We will certainly provide them for you. I want to start off, though, with some pretty big news from the Supreme Court yesterday regarding President Trump's second term and DOGE. Joining us live from ABC News, our buddy Peter Haralambous. Peter, good Wednesday morning, my friend.
It's good Wednesday morning to you. Thanks for having me.
It seems like the tariff news and the markets get, sucking all the news oxygen out of the room, but really some important stuff from the Supreme Court yesterday. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so yesterday we saw the Supreme Court briefly stay that order from last month that paused the firing of more than 16,000 probationary employees. These were employees across 6 different departments and agencies that had either been hired within the last year or had recently changed jobs within the federal government. And with this decision, it basically opens up the door for the Trump administration to carry out those firings, and it puts those employees in even more uncertain waters. Yes, their firings were put on pause, but the Trump administration could have very well fired them all over again by reinitiating the process and just kind of following an additional step by giving Congress notice. Now these people could get fired any day now, and they no longer lack that protection from that court order out of California.
Did we hear from the Supreme Court on why they rescinded that lower court order?
Yeah, the Supreme Court really boiled this down to really a procedural issue. According to the court, the unions that brought this lawsuit didn't have the standing to actually bring this case. They basically didn't have enough skin in the game to be suing. It should have been individual folks who were fired, or perhaps state attorneys general. In this case, bringing this lawsuit by these large national unions just wasn't the right play, according to the Supreme Court. We'll see, though, because there's a separate case brought by 20 state attorneys general playing out in Maryland. It's possible that that one comes through and is kind of the saving grace for these probationary employees. Only time will tell what the Supreme Court does, though.
So reading that, Peter, if they denied this simply because these unions didn't have, as they said, standing, but we've got this court case in Maryland with those folks that might have standing, could this open the door for the Supreme Court to hear another case, and they'd have to find another reason to nullify the temporary stay on the firings?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I believe that the decision out of Maryland has also been appealed up to the Supreme Court. It's actually more encompassing than that California decision. That Maryland judge blocked about the firings of about 26,000 federal employees across more than just those 6 agencies. So for now, those government employees might be able to find some safe cover based on that lawsuit, and we'll see if the Supreme Court thinks they have the right standing there. Again, really, the big thing, though, that's worth harping on is this idea that, these people were not guaranteed a job by this California judge. The judge basically said the Trump administration has the right to fire these people. It's just that if the Trump administration is going to try to lay these people off, they have to follow the right procedures, including basically letting Congress know and giving these employees advance notice. So not only did the Supreme Court take away the protection of that order, but these people were kind of under the constant threat that the Trump administration may very well reinitiate their firings and make it so that in a matter of months they didn't have a job regardless.
Peter Haralambous from ABC News joining us live on the Mark Arum Show. After the Supreme Court decision, do we hear from the DOJ or the Trump administration, any reaction from them?
It was relatively quiet from the Trump administration yesterday. It was not as aggressive a response like we saw 2 days ago when the Supreme Court shot down that lawsuit about those deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. We did hear from the unions that brought this lawsuit. They called the decision incredibly disappointing, and they vowed to continue fighting for these employees. Though time and time again, we're seeing the same union being shot down by different courts based on that same issue, whether or not they have legal standing.
If you have a second, Peter, you brought up that prior Supreme Court decision. Do you have a second to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
All right, because that was a fascinating case, right? The 18th century law that the Trump administration used for these deportees. What did the Supreme Court rule on that, and what can we expect the administration, ICE, to do moving forward?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court, I believe on Monday, came through with that decision, basically saying that the case should have been filed in Texas, not Washington, D.C., and the correct avenue to actually challenge these deportations is by filing a habeas petition, not actually filing a lawsuit on behalf of this entire class. So based again on procedural issues, that case was thrown out. It appears that case is effectively dead in Washington, D.C., though the judge might be able to continue trying to figure out if the Trump administration should be held in contempt. And the next few steps are a bit unclear. I will say that in a matter of about an hour, I'm heading down to federal court here in New York. The ACLU refiled the lawsuit in federal court in downtown Manhattan because two of the men are currently being detained in New York. They're hoping that they can have a bit better luck here than in Texas, though we'll see if the judge overseeing the case will allow it to move forward or kind of toss it aside based on the same reasoning as the Supreme Court.
The way I read it, it was kind of a victory for both sides that prior, the President Trump can use that 18th century law, but they need to follow procedure in order to make sure that they are deporting people that should be deported, right? So a small victory on both sides, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Now the Trump administration has to let people know they're being deported under this law and give them enough time to file a lawsuit challenging their removal. So at least that procedure is set in place, even though those deportations could resume any day now.
Can you do me one favor today? As you head down to federal court, will you grab me a dirty water dog outside of the courthouse?
I will grab one in your honor.
That's one of the things I miss the most, those dirty water dogs. Peter Haralambous, ABC News. As always, thanks so much for your time, buddy.
Thanks, Mark. Talk
there you go. Oh, man. I do. There is nothing better than a New York City dirty water dog. Spicy mustard, spicy onion sauce, sauerkraut. I could eat 12 of them. I do miss those. I wonder if you can get those on like Goldbelly or something. They're not gourmet hot dogs. You don't want to know what they're made of, but man, they're phenomenal tasting. All right, good stuff there from Peter. The Supreme Court staying busy during the second Trump administration, and he keeps ticking off wins, big wins and small wins at the Supreme Court, and certainly something that the Trump administration had hoped for. Again, the big news today is the reciprocal tariffs that the Chinese have leveled on the United States of America. Now, goods that are exported from the United States into China will face an 84% tariff. That's a big number. Not as big, though, as the tariff that Chinese goods being imported into the United States will see. That is a 104% tariff. So obviously the trade war ongoing there. A little bit later in the show, we heard from President Trump yesterday saying that a lot of nations are coming to negotiate with him. We'll see if other nations can negotiate a lower tariff rate. But it doesn't look like there's going to be much movement in China. I've got a lot to talk about there. I do want to update a local story today that that fascinates me and horrified me at the same time.
Have you ever wanted to get back at a coworker for something? Well, this one is pretty crazy. A man in Marietta was upset after getting fired from a pool company. He was on the property acting belligerently, and the staff called the police. When the police arrived, they found that he had these chemicals set up in the back of his truck, and if you moved him in any way, a reaction would happen, and that would cause severe lung damage for anybody who breathed it. So he was arrested and charged with terroristic threats, criminal damage, aggravated assault, and public drunkenness.
That's horrible, right? He gets fired and he's so ticked off that he basically sets up a booby trap in his work truck that anyone that opens it is going to get hit with this dastardly combination of chemicals and chlorine. And that's exhibit A, why I never want to be a boss. I don't want to say I don't like confrontations. I don't like awkward situations. I don't want to have to ever fire anyone in my life. I don't think I'd do it. If I was a boss and I had a horrible employee, I would just probably keep letting him work there because I don't want to be
like Milton in Office Space. You push him down to the bottom.
Yeah, maybe make his life a little or her life a little less comfy so they quit. But I just don't like confrontations or awkward situations. I can never be a boss. I would, if I were ever a boss, and there's, listen, I'm never going to be a boss at this point. once I go to the CIA, I'm not going to be like the CIA director or anything. I'm just going to be, a low-level analyst. So I'm never going to be a boss. Probably not. But if I did, you remember that movie, Deborah, Up in the Air with George Clooney?
George Clooney,
Yeah,
yep.
really good movie. I mean, that's a depressing movie, by the way. But George Clooney's job was he would fire people. People like me that didn't want the confrontation of their employees and they didn't want to fire them, they would hire this George Clooney to work for this firm, and he would just fly around the country and fire people for bosses that didn't want to fire anyone.
So although I wish I were here with better news, the fact is that you and I are sitting here today because this will be your last week of employment at this company.
Why me?
What am I supposed to do now?
Am I supposed to feel better that I'm not the only one losing my job?
That's got to still be a thing. I wonder if Elon Musk is going to hire the company that Clooney worked for the 16,000 people that just got fired. Do you hire a Clooney type, or is Musk the kind of guy who's like, I want to do it myself? Because I know there are people out there that they take pride and joy in firing someone. That's a horrible story. Chlorine. What are the charges again he's facing, Deborah? Like serious charges. Like he said a booby trap.
Yeah, aggravated assault, public drunkenness. Let me find the full list.
No,
again.
that's fine. Aggravated assault's the big charge. That's a big boy charge. Public drunkenness, I mean, at some point.
Yeah, that's
terroristic threats.
Terroristic threats, that's another big
Yeah.
one. Oh, my God. I couldn't fire it. I don't want to do it. I didn't even like to break up with women I was in relationships with because I didn't want to be. I would just make them annoyed enough that they'd break up with me, so I didn't have to be the guy that instigate. Yeah, I'm a weird fella. I'm a weird fella. Anyway, we'll follow that story. I do want to update that Chick-fil-A story from yesterday. I kind of went off on it in case you missed it. There was a Chick-fil-A that was held up at gunpoint, which I think is just ridiculous. And then there was a high-speed chase that ended in a crash in Buckhead. The sadder part of the story is this chase ended, I think it was Peachtree at Piedmont, that very busy intersection in Buckhead. The suspect crashed his car into another vehicle. The suspect's still in the hospital. The person in the other vehicle died. So that person's not only facing the burglary charges, the armed robbery charges at Chick-fil-A, but some sort of a manslaughter charge, right? Vehicular manslaughter. Just a horrible situation. So I just wanted to update you on that local story. When we come back, in depth on the China tariffs, we'll check in at the White House, see the reaction there. Right now, let's check the roads around town. Kicking off our triple team coverage, here's Mike Shields.
And it's still a little sluggish as you make your way into Brookhaven, Mark, with a crash that's now